Margaret with another author interview. I'm so excited for you guys to meet this extraordinary dear friend of mine named Kathy Moran. Hi, Kathy.
I am Margaret. There we go.
There we
go. You were
Hi,
looking
Kathy.
at, I don't know what you were looking at, but anyway.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Kathy is one of the authors in the book Raise the Vibration, a weekly guide for alchemizing the human experience. It is a workbook where you've got pages where you can write and journal, do exercises, and we finally have the real thing here. So excited to have you, Kathy. She was at the book release party in New York where a lot of the authors were able to gather together. And now I want to just talk to you about your story, a little bit more about you, just so our readers can get to know you better. So Kathy and I go way back, way back. I think you walked into one of my classes at The Rock originally, years and years ago. So we've known each other a long time, but even before the Giving Tree began, back when I was offering classes out of a dance studio instead of my own space. So it's so great being with you, Kathy. Kathy is one of my dear friends, such a wise, beautiful soul who I also have a blast with. She is she's a nurse of 25 years. She has her finger in so many beautiful things that make a difference, including efforts to end human trafficking. She also conducts online virtual health sessions. I mean, she has such an incredible background, but I met her on the yoga mat, of course. She's been a dear friend for many years. So Kathy, welcome. And you just tell everybody who's watching a little bit more about you and what you do, what you're involved with.
Hello, everybody. What do I do? Well, I was a registered nurse, as Ann Margaret says, for 25 years. And then I volunteered for about 10 years. I worked for the United Nations Association, Southern Division, but primarily our group focused on anti-human trafficking. And so we did a number of events, actually, in which the best part of it actually was getting out into communities and trying to educate people about how to prevent children, basically, from being trafficked, even in your own neighborhood and in schools and everything else. So I worked with a lot of really wonderful people in that space, and right now I'm actually I'm writing a bit, and I'm what am I doing? I'm here with Ann Margaret today. So
and also behind her, like so much of her beautiful work.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I have I've been I went on a journey, as Ann Margaret knows, and thank you, Ann Margaret and Anthony, her lovely husband, guided me through to go traveling during COVID, and these are some of the photographs that I had taken, and I do a little bit of painting, I do a little bit of writing, I do a little bit of just a whole hodgepodge of things now. But my real focus, and I think I've really just been really interested in the healing spaces, and in a number of ways. And I worked in hospice at one point, and that opened my eyes up to healing in a whole other realm, spiritually, and in ways that I actually never thought of healing. And because I'm medically geared, that really taught me really a lot about the spiritual side of healing. And so that's one, that's why I connected with Ann Margaret, I think, right away, because she has been in this space for quite a while. So I think your like soul, you always attract your like souls. So I'm convinced that's why we maintained a friendship for all this time, because you can kind of you see your own walking down the pike, right? So,
I'm so honored to even say that. I remember we were standing on, what was it, 31st Street, I believe, having this conversation years ago. It was after I had opened the Giving Tree. And we were talking about hospice, about end-of-life care, and how if we don't know how to die, we really don't know how to live. And if we're not in touch with our own mortality, we're not fully living, we're not fully embracing the gift of life. And your story for this book, there's another story that I called the theme for that week, because if those of you don't know, there are 52 authors in this book. And it started during lockdown of just like, how can I help? And I just kind of heard this little voice as we hear sometimes, like, get people to focus on their resilience. And so I reached out to friends. Kathy said, yes, I'll write a story about something I overcame. And one of the authors wrote a story that I entitled the theme of that particular week, because it's a weekly guide, 52 authors, 52 weeks of the year. I entitled his week Embracing Life, and I entitled your theme for your week Embracing Death. So I want you just to speak a little bit about this, because I think that's a reason why you and I connect so easily, so deeply, instantaneously. It's just being really sober to the fact that we do have a very precious time here, and things have changed us in our own personal journey to recognize that. And I feel like you and I could talk for hours, so I'm trying to keep us on track because I think we could go off. But I want you to talk about, why did you choose the story that you wrote for the book? Because it's a very, very appropriate story for this time of year. In 1 week, we're going to be, honoring the 21st anniversary of something that was very devastating for so many people, maybe even the entire world. So why did you choose to write on this story? Because I know you've overcome so much, and you could have written about so many things. Why this story?
It really, I think it resonated. Well, first, I wrote about 9/11. I had been a nurse. I was a nurse, a practicing nurse at that time. And anyway, I had many opportunities to get down to the ground zero, and there was something, a force beyond me that was not, it was not meant to happen, that I was meant to be down there. And so it got me thinking, there has to be something that I need to contribute here, that I need to contribute. And so that led me to different avenues of expression. And I think the major thing was, like, I was able to get down there, down to not the site, but I was able to get down to New York City 3 days after 9/11. And I went around listening to people's stories. And of course, everybody was extremely, the silence down in New York City was absolutely, that was resonating, absolutely resonating. And it resonated into people's souls, really. The silence, the absolute silence in a city that never stops, as Anne Margaret knows. And
yeah.
So,
yeah.
And you needed to look at and hear. You heard stories. You heard all the stories of the resilience,
mm-hmm.
of people's kindness,
mm-hmm.
of people really just feeling that they had to have some hope out of all of this. They had to have some hope, because it was just unbelievably tragic, obviously.
Yeah.
So I was able to hear the hope in little areas, because it was so silent. So yeah. I felt a need to write about that and to share with people. The kindness I had seen. I stood on lines I had a a list of people that were missing, and I stood online at St. Vincent's, the hospital that was supposed to be receiving a lot of people. And I was just looking at photograph after photograph of people that have passed, and and of course not knowing at that time that they had passed. But it was, again, I felt like I just felt this needed to be written about in a way that we have to, in the silence, how you can hear the hope and the kindness of people, and all over the world. It wasn't, of course, we know it was all over the world. All over the world. So
that's beautiful. I'm so glad you wrote about this event. I mean, for every single person, I think, on the planet, to a degree, it's so impactful, this day, and the silence, and just all of the senses. I mean, I was down in Union Square the next day, and just the scent that carried on for months and months and months, but also just that space of silence, of absolute devastation and opportunity in the void of absolute terror and unthinkable trauma. And what I found so beautiful about your story, and just thrilled to include it, is there's so many beautiful aspects to what you gave the reader about your experience, and sharing the different ways that people who dropped everything and drove 2,000 miles to be there, and were like, well, of course, why wouldn't I? You do the same thing. Like, one of the most important things that we can do in this space of feeling helpless is help another, is be of service. We feel used. We feel in the best way. We feel as though we're purposeful. And, the quotes that you chose for your story too, about, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Albert Einstein. There is a guy who knew a few things, that we don't know why we're not, doors don't open for where we think we should go. And when things do open that we didn't really want necessarily, but we walk through them and have faith and trust, and just recognize that there's a divine guidance if we are able to listen. However you describe that for yourself in your own personal life, that's up to you. But this idea of that, and I mean, I got so much out of this story, and editing all these stories through tears of just being so inspired. I want you to share just real quick, what do you think is the main message you want your readers to take away?
I think even when you feel so much despair, and you feel like, there's nowhere to turn, there is always a light. And the light is within you. It's within you. All you need to do is look.
Yeah. And be willing to embrace that.
Yeah.
I mean, embrace that.
It's in you. It's in you.
Yeah.
You are the light. You are the light, and you have it. You have it. And even at our darkest moments, just try and look at your light, because you are a light to. If it's not for you, then the sun wouldn't be as bright, right? Because you're part of that. You're part of that.
And I feel like so many times when we don't feel purposeful, and in this time of devastation that we all live through in New York City, if you're not being purposeful, if you're not doing something where you're bringing that light to others, you don't get to experience that yourself.
That's right. You are a light, and the way you choose to direct that light, it's your choice.
Yeah.
But you are a light.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So that's what I hope and hope, because I think there's hope in death. I mean, there's hope in death. I know that's a very profound statement, but there is hope in death. Because again, it's again the hope that you will see something. You will see something for yourself that maybe you didn't see before. Maybe you didn't see.
Well, so much of our suffering comes from resisting death, not just the physical kind, but deaths of our identity or relationship or loss. And
I thanks for clarifying that, because it doesn't mean death of a body. I'm not specifically speaking about that. I'm speaking about multiple kinds of realms of death, not per se the physical being. You can have a death of hey, when you're making transitions and you're, okay, there's a death of I'm no longer going there, right?
Right.
A closure. Maybe I should identify it more as a closure. Closure, and you're moving on. Some people can identify that as that's it. Wrote that book and ended that chapter and move on, and So
and I think that in recognizing those deaths or those closures, there's always going to be grief too, and that's okay. That needs to be felt. And so many of the authors.
Thank you, Anne Margaret, for identifying that too. I mean, and identifying that you have fear. There's fear around that. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Feel what you got to feel.
That's exactly it.
Feeling is healing. Like going
that's
through
right.
it
That's
and really
exactly
feeling it. The whole gamut of a human experience, and it's such a beautiful story. I can't wait for people to recognize all of the wisdom as they read this. And I linked your particular story to the heart chakra, because the heart chakra is very much significant to how we can be of service, how we can help, how we can give, how we can receive. And in our time of need, especially in the one that you're writing about 21 years ago, there is such opportunity that opened up for people to step into something that they never knew that they had within them. So many stories, whether they lost a spouse or a friend or a father or a child, or didn't know anybody but was experiencing all of that from thousands of miles away. And we all have stories, and we must honor each of our stories the way that we experience them. So I want you just to lastly speak about why, what did you get out of writing this particular story? And because storytelling is so profound, and at the end of the book, we left some blank pages for everybody to write your own story. But what did you get out of writing your own story there, Kathy?
Well, I think my desire, I guess, was to connect with people, and I was hoping that it would resonate with people, that, that's what I was hoping. And to get out what I was thinking about that day, and which I can imagine that so many people were feeling, fear and anger and all of those really just raw emotions. And I was hoping that people would be able to connect with that and just see how you're walking through that, how you walk through that, even if we are reflecting today about that day. How did you walk through it? What was your way that you walked through that? What was your way?
So many times when we write stories, too, we were able to reflect on something that might have happened 20, 40 years ago, but we experienced a new way of relating to it. So it's interesting of looking back and saying, well, how was I at the time? And then how am I now? And feeling free to let that be dynamic. And
well, I think the major thing for me is I felt I didn't I didn't know what my purpose was when that happened. And to your point of being, because I have lived a life of service, I was instantly, how am I going to serve? How am I going to serve? And it was not my lot to be down there at that time.
Right.
So I kept asking that question, and I kept asking, and it did present itself sooner or later. And now, 21 years after, I can see where it presented itself. But at that time, it was not meant to be that I was down there. So there was a, whether you want to call it God, the divine, or whatever you want to call it, there was a reason that I was not meant to be there because of, like I said, I tried, and that's what my story says, is I tried multiple times. So, but again, I think, so 21 years after, now looking back, I can see why. And it's as simple as, Anne Margaret, as being able to, when you called me on the phone, I knew immediately this was a story I wanted to tell, because I could, at this point in my life, look back and say, now I know how I was meant to serve, even though it wasn't apparent at that time.
Yeah, there's such healing in that, even if it's a couple decades later. It's just moving through our own stories and reflecting. And I want to thank you so much for being a writer in this book and contributing your personal story of resilience. And I wore a t-shirt today for you on Instagram. We can't see it, but on the Zoom you can.
Oh, let me see it.
She needed a hero, so that's what she became. And that is, we can all step into that being of service. We don't know when we're somebody else's hero, even if we just offer a smile on the street sometime, or be kind or patient with one another. And I just love you so much, like a sister. And
well, I love you, and I just want to everybody out there, just embrace your light. Everybody, you have a beautiful soul, and just embrace it. And I have to say, Anne Margaret, I really appreciated the way that you laid this book out, because it's done in such a healing way that people can reflect on their own stories and how it resonates with them, which is really, that's the important thing of stories. That's the really important thing of stories, is that you can reflect and connect and associate, so you don't feel like you're alone. You don't ever feel like you're alone, because you never are. You never are. So, so I really appreciate, though, the healing way that you laid this out was just unbelievably beautiful. So I thank you for inviting me. I really thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
Love you, girl. And to find you, we have your Instagram handle. Is there any other way that people can find you, Kathy, who are wanting to connect more?
Yeah, I do have a. I'm sorry.
That's
sorry,
okay.
And Margaret, I just started this.
No, it's okay.
Well, you have my handle on Instagram, and I also have a Gmail account, which is tskathy86@gmail. And
what is it? Say that again for people.
Oh, I'm sorry. T is in Thomas, S is in Sam, KATHY86@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. Got it. So thanks so much. I so appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for watching, those of you who are watching live or in replay with us today. And you can get the book still, obviously, online at raceofvibration.com on the shop page.
Yeah. Could you hold the book up, Anne Margaret? Because I meant to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, look at how lovely.
It's such a pretty book. Rachel Gale designed it and illustrated and just did such a beautiful job with that. And all the wisdom from all these beautiful humans who share from their heart their own personal stories. So thank you so much, Kathy, for joining me today, and everybody's watching.
Thank you, Anne Margaret.
You're welcome. You. And until next time, keep raising the vibration, everybody. Bye, everyone.